Welcome again. This is podcast number 30, the Dan John podcast from Dan John University. Thank you so much. I'd like to talk about something, maybe quickly, but it's important. I have a good friend, Mike Rosenberg, who listens to our podcast, and he asked an interesting question. On the podcast, I'll often say, would you mind getting back to us and let me know how that goes? Would you mind emailing us or sending us a video? Let us know what's going on. Mike asked a simple question. He goes, how often do people respond to that? And I thought, that's a good question. So Brian and I had this conversation, and I am pleased to announce it's not a couple, it's not a few, it's a lot. We're probably at the 10 to 20 range of people who get right back to us, send us new videos, and keep us in the loop. Now, I've discussed the feedback loop before, but folks, to be a great coach, one of the things you need is feedback. You need to ask those questions. Is this working? How do you like things? That's good. But to be a great athlete or client from a personal trainer, there's some other things you need. And what's nice is that Mike Rosenberg asked this question. And the reason I talk about Mike so much, besides the fact that he has been around in my career a long time, he's smart, he listens, he helps, but he does something that's far more important than all that. He shows up. Mike and I got to know each other when the internet first started. I think we met on the old school strength site. I had a blog. You'll never be able to find it. Well, it was a website. As many people know, anything from before about 2001 or 2002 is literally vanished. It's all those bytes are gone. So my first website was in 1998, and I just gave out free material, as I kind of still do, over there in danjohn.net. And Mike and I just started talking to each other. And Mike was extremely helpful when I broke my wrist at the state meet. It was Mike who convinced me that, you're not out. I was told by my doctor I'd never lift again. And he got me into doing the heavy backpack carries, the heavy sandbag carries, dragon sleds to make myself train again. And weirdly, a few years later, had the best years of my throwing career. And don't forget, I wasn't 20, I was 47 to 50. So Mike has been there. So he lives in one of our Midwestern states, and I used to have a discus camp. We had a discus camp in Ohio. And he said, do you mind if I come down? And I said, sure. And Mike did something that very, very few people do. He showed up. He brought his son Seth, and later on I became Seth's godfather. And my point is important here because one of the great things you can do is show up. I can't tell you what a difference it's going to make in your career, all your careers, and in your fitness performance, and I guess even longevity. Show up. As many of you know, about once a year, I take a fitness course. Sometimes it practically kills me. Now, Fit Ranks wasn't that hard physically. I loved the 2 days, but I had to jump rope. And anybody who's ever seen me jump rope knows that if there's a gap in my training, it's jumping rope. So in front of 60 new friends, they saw the worst exhibition of jump roping in human history. Basically, I don't jump rope. The thing spins around, hits my feet, I step over for about a minute. It's embarrassing. But folks, what did I do? I showed up. Kettlebell certs. I went and I took it. I showed up. And then after that, I started teaching it. But that's the key. If there is a key to success in this world, number one is show up. So for those of you who send in questions, thank you. That's step one of showing up. Okay, the Dan John formula for success. This is from 1996 from a little newsletter I had called Resound. 1, show up. Number 2, and this answers Mike's question, don't quit. Hey, you're floundering with an exercise. It's not going right. Well, send it a video. Maybe I can help you out. Get a coach. Maybe they can help you out. Do more practices, which repetition, magically fixes so many issues. 1, show up. 2, don't quit. And number 3, which is why I love this podcast, number 3 in my success formula is ask questions. When you come to a cert and you don't understand something, put your hand up and say, I don't get what you're doing. Then, if they're a good instructor, they'll stop and go, this person does not understand what I'm trying to teach. Let's try something different and new. If they don't, I would suggest leaving the cert or getting a new coach or a new trainer. If they can't come up with a new way of explaining, teaching, or helping you, a drill, a concept, whatever, bye-bye, leave. And I'm very serious about that. I have to thank Mike Rosenberg because he is the patron saint of showing up. And that's important. And for those of you who listen to our podcast, those people asking questions, and that's why I like to refer to them as gentle listener, God bless them. They are doing their best to follow the 3 steps of success. By the way, if you want to have a successful career, I think those 3 things will help you in everything. One of the things that when people ask, Dan, you write so much, how do you do that? Well, I roll out of bed every morning and I write. And I don't quit. And if I'm making mistakes, I ask questions or I ask for feedback. 1, 2, 3. My great success formula, which I stole from anybody who's ever been successful. Thank you. We have a question from Dave. I'm 55 years old. Oh, to be 55 again. I remember those days. And in pretty good shape. Good. Dave, I just got to stop you right there and say, good. Thank you. It's nice to hear that. When I work with most 55, 50-year-olds, that's not the phrase I hear. I work out to stay healthy and help my friends move couches when necessary. I like you. I can currently deadlift twice my body weight for 5. Is there any value in increasing it more than that? Okay. All right. If you're going to compete in a contest, yes. For moving couches and generally being valuable, no. You are strong enough. You are strong enough to handle just about any task thrown at a 55-year-old in normal life. Yeah, you're doing really well. There's nothing wrong with a double body weight deadlift, and to do it for 5, congratulations, Dave. You're doing great. One of the things I'd like you to do your best is, keep that double body weight. The only thing I would maybe suggest to you is see how little work you can do on the deadlift and keep that up. Keep training, but don't test it very often, and just see how long you can keep that double body weight deadlift going. I'd love to see you still pulling that at 65. Okay, congratulations to you, and thanks for sharing your story. Got an email from Richard. I'm a dentist in the Army. I love the military, the dentists, the doctors, the lawyer corps, the chaplains. They have the most interesting jobs in the world. And have always had to train to pass the Army's PT events, unlike others who can roll out of bed and rock the run, push-ups, sit-ups with minimal training. It's because okay. With the new Army Combat Fitness Test, the hanging leg tuck has been introduced as one of the 6 events. Sadly, I can't do a single leg tuck. My knees come to about 4 inches below my elbows when hanging. Do you have any advice on how to work on this? Well, okay, there could be a medical issue there, a structural issue there. I don't know what resources you have, but certainly you have access to a medical doctor. Maybe a chiropractor could look at it, maybe some other physical therapist. But let's now get you in shape for the tuck. What I want you to do is something that we, back when we used to teach the pull-up in the Kettlebell 2 certification, I really enjoyed this section here. But one of the things I'd recommend you do, obviously, you're pushing against gravity, but what I would suggest you do is the easiest way is have someone like me stand there with a broomstick and hold the broomstick like this while you lay on your back. So you're laying on your back. I would have your arms not completely vertical, but gently like this for the first few times you do it, because I don't want you all that, that hyper stuff going on here. And what I want you to do is hold on to a bar here, and I want you to laying on your back, bring your knees to your elbows. Bring your knees to your elbows. Bring your knees to your elbows. And practice the movement. And then slowly over time, bring that angle up so that there's more and more load from your lower body. One of the things I discovered when I first started teaching the pull-up better, and by the way, this exercise you're doing is what I consider part of the pull-up family, is that if you haven't trained to be in that position, okay, you can't get there. So I would recommend, and by the way, you could probably, speaking of couches, you could probably just hold on to the base of a couch and just practice bringing your knees to your elbows, bring your knees to your elbows, bring your knees to your elbows. Just be careful. Underneath couches always have those damn staples, so you just, as a warning to you, okay? And you can just practice the movement. I would suggest practicing the movement several times a day. Just practice bringing your knees to your elbows, laying down on the ground. Also, practice just dead hanging from the bar. So what we're going to do is you're going to practice the test on the ground, and you're going to build up your grip strength and your shoulder mobility by just hanging. If you read the post-deployment program, you can see that when I work with the military, hanging is a huge part of what I teach. And then over time, by kind of teaching the nervous system in your body what you're looking for, getting the time in on the hang, I think those two will shock you in just a few weeks about how that's going to help improve your thing. When in doubt, regress. Good question. And also, Richard, this is another one where I'd like you to follow up because I'd like to know how this is going for you. Thank you. Okay, interesting. Jason has a question that ties right back into the hanging thing. I have been using your suggestion of hanging when I have shoulder flare-ups, and it has made a big difference. Again, that wasn't medical advice. It's something I read from a doctor's study. I am wondering if you have any other similar exercises that may benefit for knee pain. Oh boy. To be clear, I am not looking for medical advice. God bless you. I am also seeing a doctor, but looking for anything that may provide some benefit when combined with any medical treatment. I am 42 and have had knee pain of fluctuating severity for years. It's pretty bad now, particularly after squats or anything with deep knee flexion. My imaging has been clear in the past, other than some minor arthritis. I've had arthritis, of course, both hips had it, and the arthritis now is in a hazmat bin somewhere. But I also had arthritis in an ankle for years, and basically I cured that right ankle arthritis by doing something very unusual. And by the way, before you say I don't know how to train, when you throw the discus as many times as I have, that right ankle is constantly pivoting and turning under enormous load, and the body rebels after a while. And how I dealt with it was twofold. One, I quit throwing the discus in a way that made me twist that ankle so radically. And I changed techniques a little bit. And amazingly, when I started flowing around the ankle versus grinding the ankle, the problem disappeared. So the first thing I want you to think about, Jason, is this. What is it in your life that's exacerbating this knee injury? And if it's squats and anything with deep knee flexion, maybe you have to stop doing that. Now, this goes against my normal advice of maintaining your squat for as long as you can, but in your case, at age 42, this might be really banging you too hard. Maybe you need to get your leg work from just hinging and I would like to know if loaded carries bother your knees. Do farmer walks hurt your knees? Do bear hug carries hurt your knees? Oddly, with me, pushing the prowler was the best thing I could do for my hip replacement recovery. And maybe there's something like sled drags or something like that, that you'll get the leg work in without doing any damage to your wheels. So let's get away from the deep flexion stuff. Let's get away from the squatting. If you do squats, I want you to do them on the ground, and I just want you to be in the 6-point position and just rock. And if you have to put knee pads or pillows under your knees, I get it, you're fine. And just rock back and forth. Try to maintain that hip mobility. And then when you work out, can you hinge, and can you do loaded carries to get your leg workout in? I'm sort of sorry to read this, Jason, at 42, but you can't keep pounding that until you get some relief in the areas of pain. And if you have to have a medical intervention down the line, well, we'll deal with that then. But for now, let's see what we can get out of loaded carries, hinges, and if you have hills near you, can you run hills without knee issues? You run up the hill, but with knee issues, you gingerly come down the hill. Remember, what's going to hurt your knees on hills is downhill. Jason, let us know how it's going. Duncan asks a question that I've been seeing pop up for a while. And it's going to be, gentle listeners, because I'm such a big fan of Percy Cerruti's work. And he's the one that changed my career when I first read about, I had heard of him before, but I really got into his work in 1991 when I found his book, Training with Cerruti. Cerruti recommends deadlift, press, explosive pulls, ab work, and something kind of like a swing, which of course was the foundation of easy strength for me. One of the things he doesn't like is heavy squats. And I came to the same conclusion that he came to, that heavy squats sometimes get in the way of things. So I'm going to answer the question now, but with that as the background for those of you just coming into this question. Can you please tell me why you're not a fan of squatting for runners? First off, even though I was a head track coach and I've coached track my entire life, I always listen to smarter people when it comes to training. Barry Ross told me squatting for sprinters has issues. Percy Cerruti didn't tell me, but I read squatting heavy for distance runners has issues. When I listen to smarter people than me, I go along with what they're saying. Charlie Francis, the great Canadian sprint coach, Ben Johnson did half squats. The issue with squats is that it's one of the easiest exercises to keep loading. But the problem is you can keep adding more and more and more to your squat and drive your squat number up higher and higher and higher. But the problem with track and field, which you'll notice everything we're talking about right in here is track and field, the correlation between higher squat numbers and improvement in track and field is often the bad way, opposite. Your squat went up, but your performance went down. In track and field, when that happens, we stop back, we stare at each other and say, we got to stop doing that. We got to change things. So the reason and please don't say I'm a fan or I'm not a fan. Squatting has its place. It is a fundamental human movement. Every athlete I have does it at some level. I'll have my female cross-country runners goblet squatting with the 12K bell, the 8K bell. The movement's important. We're talking about load. Now, when I talk about load, it's hard for me. So my best squat is 605 for 3. That's pretty good considering I had no knee wraps and I was basically I was in a golf shirt and shorts. But that 605 for 3, that season my throws weren't very good. When I stopped back squatting heavy, my throws went back up. That's one person's experience, the lowest level of logic. I saw a UFO last night. You should believe that there's UFOs. Okay? I stopped squatting heavy, my discus went farther. Those are both the same statement, okay, in logic. So this is a nuanced point, Duncan, so it's difficult for some people to understand nuance. When great minds tell you the same thing, one of our jobs as coaches is to step back and go, I keep hearing this over and over. Let's look into our well of knowledge and see if the same thing happens. It so happens that when I read what Percy said and what Barry said, the same things came up. So I said, okay, for runners, the movement of squatting is heavy. The movement of squatting is important, but not the load. And then he has a last question. Also, when you say runners, do you mean middle and long distance runners or sprinters too? I think I've answered that. Sprinters are different than long distance runners, but I think a lot of things you can learn from Percy Cerruti would carry over into sprinting. And a lot of things you learn from Barry Ross and Charlie Francis would carry over in the long distance. The mentors I use in distance training, Cerruti, Phil Maffetone, and others, you start to get this rhythm that the same truths keep popping up. And that's what I'm all about, Duncan. Where do these same fundamental things keep popping up? Let's pay some attention to them. Thank you. Good question. And I hope that ends this particular question for a while. But as all of us know, I'll be repeating it next week. We've got a question from Peter. I'm at a point in my life where I know I should be doing park bench style workouts. Yes, like every other person I know. I have young kids, including a 3-month-old. God bless you. A demanding job in finance, long commute, etc. But my ego keeps getting in the way. Boy, Peter, that's never happened to me. Jeez. Okay, that's it. That's me being funny. Because the same thing always happened with me. Any advice for getting over the fear that doing park bench workouts will cause me to lose all my strength and gains? Well, first off, park bench workouts can be some of the hardest workouts you ever do in your life. 3 sets of 8 in the bench press with a minute rest, which is, one of the adaptations of the transformation program. Doing that with 225, you get the first set of 8 done, you look at the clock and it's like, don't you know who I am? That second hand sweeps up to the minute and all of a sudden it's like, oh, here I go again. 7, 8. That third set, your eyes wide open. I better get a spotter here. 5, 4. So park bench workouts can be absolutely brutal. It's just that the way we talk about them is so, happy. I talk about squirrels and I talk about a park. Maybe I need to make it a little bit more macho. Okay, bro, you're in a park. The squirrel comes by and you eat that squirrel. That's what a park bench workout is, bro. I hope that helps you. If you need Peter, I will come over to your house and while you're doing a park bench workout, I'll scream at you and throw chalk at you. Just be rude and push you around a little bit. If that helps, I'm here to help you, okay? One of the things you'll find delightful about park bench workouts is that they're repeatable, and doable. And boy, does that clear up your brain. I'm here to help, Peter, so if you need to, I'll get myself a nice big stick, a bunch of things to throw at you, and I'll come over and beat you into submission while you do an intelligent, reasonable workout. Thank you. We have a question from Stuart. How do you deal with muscle mass imbalances after injuries? Boy, there's nothing new here, my friend. Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, they were all about, they love that symmetry. And I got to tell you, it's one of the hardest things to have, even without injuries. I broke my arm badly in 2003. So you're looking at 17, 18 years of dealing with this. So God bless you, man. And a recent DEXA scan shows that it's 1 kilo lighter than my other and noticeably smaller. My strength is fine and I train regularly, but my mass is very unbalanced. Okay, there's a couple things here first. Stuart, here's number one, is that there's a good chance this will never get fixed. Sorry. If you read Tom Meyer's great book, Anatomy Trains, he talks about these slings here, my left leg to my right arm and my right leg to my left arm. If you study my injuries, you'll notice that almost universally, my injury line is on my left arm sliding down through my right leg. So finger surgeries, double wrist surgery, elbow surgery, this hip, that knee, my right ankle with the arthritis. It's because all those years of throwing, I made my left leg extremely powerful because that's what you brace, that's where you block a throw, and of course my right arm coming around. When I retired from throwing, one of the first things I attempted to do was bring back my symmetry. And boy, this is tough. This is tough. Now, there is the old Arnold method. Arnold Schwarzenegger, I don't know if you've ever heard of him, made a movie or two, politician. I think he was a bodybuilder. His idea was that one day a week, by the way, this is still good advice, that you work on your asymmetrical, your less strong, your weaker side. And I got to tell you, if you have the time and energy to do that, that's not a bad idea. So pull a day apart and do your best to add a workout to it. In fact, it might not be a terrible idea. If you read Even Easier Strength, we have an entire, on variation 3 of the program, you focus a session every week on just the one side, and you play around with trying to build them up to symmetry. This brings us to point number 2, is whenever I do single side work, I always let the less strong side dictate the reps for the strong side. I think I've told this story before on this podcast, but there's a kettlebell called the Beast, which weighs 48 kilos or 106 pounds. At the San Jose Cert, and a lot of people saw it, Ben Fogel, my trainer, was there, other people, I pressed the Beast with my right arm 13 times. By the way, next time you're in a gym, pop the Beast up, knock out a set of 10 and see how good that is. With my left side, though, I can only do 2. Now, if I'm going to try to impress you, impress, okay, forget. I'm going to press with my right arm. If I'm trying to chase symmetry, or in your case, imbalance, I've got to get this from 2 to 3 to 5 to 6, and maybe even allow this to drop 13, 12, 11, 10, 9. I'll probably always be asymmetrical on my strength, but instead of being like this, wouldn't it be a little bit smarter for the health of my neck, my shoulder, my T-spine, to be a little bit more like this versus like that? Interesting thing, I don't know if you know about the functional movement screen, but when I was at that 13.2 level, I couldn't barely do the functional movement screen. Once I started to get those numbers in line, it's weird to say this, getting weaker, but getting stronger, my FMS score on that one improved. So I think both of those options might help you. A concentrated weekly session on that issue on the side. And yeah, I would train like a bodybuilder. Isolated lifts. If there is a compound movement, just one-sided. You say your arm and things are smaller. I just don't know. But one-arm bench press, one-arm press, the suspension trainer, the one-arm row with the suspension trainer, those would be your compound movements. Maybe using a machine might be some value. Try that for a few sessions. I would say do that for the next 3 to 6 weeks. Don't do another DEXA scan. Just take a look at that and see if there's any difference. And then when you do one-sided work, let the whatever arm it is. You didn't say that which arm either, but let the less strong side dictate the reps. Those are two really simple ideas, but it's a tough one. You're at 17, 18 years of this. That's a lot of time. If someone was born when you broke your wrist, they'd be a collegiate athlete right now. That's a lot of time, man. So I'm here to help you, Stuart. Try that for 3 to 6 weeks and then give us some feedback, okay? Remember, we need to know how this is working. I really appreciate your question, and I really hope that some of this helps you. Well, thank you for listening. Remember, if you have questions, send them to podcast@danjohnuniversity.com.